oftentimes some people are focusing more on the spirit than the body and the 3D reality, or whatever, the 3, 4, 5D reality. But it has to be, the manifested state has to be done here first, because the balance can't come in if you're trying to do it the reverse. If you're trying, because you've come into the body, you haven't come into the spirit to be here. You're a spirit coming in the body. So the work has to be done through the body.
Yes. And to try to reach out and to ascend and to raise your frequency when you haven't gotten this handled is not going to do any good.
Well, it's not going to work.
We need to get a grasp on the here and now. Yeah, it won't. It'll totally just disintegrate around you. Yeah. That's what everybody is not everybody, I hate saying that. Most people, a lot of people are reaching out to find something beyond where they're at, and the catalyst is happening in the here and now within. Yeah. So, trying to raise your frequency artificially is not going to do it. It's not. You need.
And this is tough.
That's just chasing some more of that false confidence.
Yeah, and this is where, and it might, sometimes it may seem mundane, but the truth is, you have to get your affairs in order here in order for you to be able to access properly the spirit data, the spirit reservoir, the library, the eternal libraries. Because if the work isn't being done here, and if you can't bring it through this this system, this body system of reality, then it won't work. It can't work, because you are you can't bring through manifested reality if you're not manifesting that reality. You have to do the work, as hard as that may seem.
And the one thing, the phase that I'm entering into, I've been saying a lot of that with the people I correspond with out there, is that I'm taking on a new role right now, and I'm very relieved that I'm actually taking it on. It's been kind of rough because some people are feeling like I'm abandoning them, which is the furthest from the case. I am not abandoning anybody. I'm following my own calling, my own assignment that I'm here for. But now is the time for me, and I'm hoping to be able to be an example of this, is to bring it back to center. And my clients many years ago will understand that with some of the processes that I've used. Is it's okay to go out there and look at all of these concepts and play around with all of these ideas and going way out and grabbing them and bringing them in and assimilating them. But you need to come back to that core point that you had spoke about before, and find that stillness in there and use that as the beacon. Yeah. And my goal now is to expand that space right now and to hold, I call it holding sacred space. And that's all it is just holding the space for everything that's crumbling now. We've spent several decades now hammering at the illusion and hammering at the virus and the false simulation that is out there. It's already hammered enough. It is falling. It's time to start adjusting that. For some of us, not everybody, some people will still want to be out there in that, but some of us are starting to gravitate towards holding that space and trying to figure out new ways of rebuilding once it's kind of dismantled. And at least learning that, it's kind of another level of dismemberment for me and some of the others that have started feeling, is let that go away and then starting fresh with new ideas on how to expand from there. I have no idea what it's going to look like once we hit the event horizon and burst through, or whatever's going to happen. spontaneously combust. Who knows? You know, but we've got to just keep plugging along, you know.
Well, and this is where maybe we can get back to what is a true natural education in life, and that is focusing on what would create a real society, agriculture, farming your own, just growing your own food, being as independent within a society, within a your own quote village, I guess you could say, where everybody's working together and you don't have to depend on quote a government, something that is taking over your mind. By the way, that's what government means, something that is literally taking over. Yeah. Where you don't have to depend on anything except for one another in an evolution of nurturing, in an emutation of creating true life, not in this sick system where so much of the population has dead jobs, literally dead jobs. I mean, this is, when I think about the system as it is, I just want to scream. I want to scream that everybody thinks that 48 hours of work per week is normal, that you have to work 5 days a week and you get 2 days off. This is all so bent and so unnatural, and that you can't, there's no room for sleep, really, for the regeneration. There's no room for connection, for communication. There's no room for nurturing, growing, hobbies, for really doing anything that has anything to do with real life, for truth seeking. There's no room for anything. It's a factory production. It is a factory production reality. It's sickening.
Yeah. They want to get the best outcome, you know, from their workers. They want as efficient and as much as they can get out of them without them cratering totally. And when they do crater, then they're cast aside. You know, it's sad.
The jobs themselves, for the majority, when I say dead, I mean that they're not life. They're not life enforcing. They're not, well, enforcing is the wrong word, but, you know, it's an entire society, life sustaining, right? There's an entire society that is based on making and doing things that are irrelevant and really have nothing to do with even how our bodies function. Our bodies are not designed to work the way that we're working. They're not designed to be, you know, everybody's deficient in sleep. Everybody's deficient in energy. Everybody's deficient in nutrition, because there's not a lot of nutrition left in anything. There's not a lot of nutrition left in the soil. So when something grows, it's not pulling any real nutrients out of it. So you've got an entire population of people who are completely exhausted, not to mention, you know, that most people are being utilized in alter realities and being siphoned and harvested on the daily. So if it isn't enough to have a ridiculous life that has no real meaning and bearing to what is actually truly should be life, it's even worse that you're being siphoned on various astral levels and other areas of quote reality and harvested. So this is, to me, insanity. It is actually the definition of insanity. And when is it going to stop? When are enough people going to say, this is not life, and this is not living, and this is not what I've been born for?
What happens when the individual person takes the responsibility of doing what they can. And you had talked about, you know, the old system and what we have envisioned and everything, it's not going to be an on and off switch. We're not, well, it could totally cancel out, and that would be totally hard to do, but to try to survive. I want a little bit about that I'm working with is trying to nurture now. That, speaking of, switching hats and the role and everything, that's where we are moving to. We are just starting a planning process with a core number of about 30 people. And we are looking at expanding and going back to the idea that we had tried to get going through Soul Tribe Sanctuary before, but it just evidently wasn't time. But we're looking at hybrid business models and looking at like ag shares where people buy into the farm to get their produce. They can come out and learn how to grow food. They can come out and learn how to preserve it, taking care of the animals, connecting with the animals on the healing process. I was doing that up in Wyoming before I got kind of uprooted out of there. I had a garden going, and people were learning how to connect with the plants and things, and I was using it therapeutically. I'm no longer using it in a therapeutic sense, but it's still healing. And animals, how to connect with animals. We had equine therapy and all of that kind of stuff. But we've got a number of people, and it's looking like it's really taken off somewhere. So we're kind of in the brainstorming thing. But that's where my heart is now, is to, there's so many people out there that don't know how to grow food. They don't know how to cook it. They don't know how to preserve it, how to operate within the cycles that it takes to grow it naturally. And we just want to be able to offer that.
Well, that's exactly, I think, where everybody in their own pods and in whatever they are able to create together should be focusing on, if possible, because, when things are going to start happening, the grocery stores are not going to be where you're going to be able to go and get your food. I mean, this is a matter of creating a different kind of life. And actually, it's actually a good thing for people to start making some noise with regards to the life that's been imposed on them. I mean, I remember reading Charles Dickens. I used to really love Charles Dickens when I was young. And the way that he would describe the slave system back then in the Industrial Revolution, and how really our workforce is based on that slave system, just as it was in the Industrial Revolution. The difference is back then they would force children to work, do chimney work and all manner of terrible things. But I mean, really, we're doing that, and we're doing it to ourselves. And this all has to change, but it has to change. It has to start small. If that means converting your lawn, okay, because I think when I look at people's lawns in their homes, I just can't believe the wasted space. Okay, I choke myself when I go for a walk, because like lemmings, everybody just does the same thing, and they're mowing grass, but nothing happens with the grass. They're not using the land. They're not doing anything with their grass. It's just ridiculous. The whole thing, again, it comes back to everything being insane. So, even if it means taking your lawn and actually creating a garden for yourself, and uproot the ridiculousness of this grass. It's like a golf course. It's taking valuable land and converting it to something that's useless for no reason. For aesthetics.
Water that goes into a lawn. Yeah. The amount of water that goes into a lawn is crazy too.
But for nothing. It just doesn't, none of it makes any sense to me. So you know what? There's a series, the Anastasia, the cedar tree. series. The Anastasia series is brilliant. And if somebody really wants to get a feeling of what it would be like to live in a world where you're connecting with everything, when you're connecting to the soil and the living essence of your spirit, because regardless of whether we're in a server or not, it doesn't really matter. We are mind made manifest. So we're still getting the exact same feelings from what we're manifesting through our experiential, filter. So, the series is brilliant in literally taking you and transporting you so that everybody would have an idea of what it would be like to live in a world like that, to where you are communicating with animals, where you literally feel love and you're heart-based and you're emanating from a heart-based center, not a mind. Because what's happening with this synthetic takeover, the machine, and life becoming a machine, is that the mind is literally the central interface system, and the heart is becoming more and more obscure and harder to reach and access for many. And this is the downfall. This is where the downfall is going to be. So, we need to be able to just surround ourselves with things that are going to take us back, transplant us back to the origin of our essence in spirit and nature. I mean, the series, the Anastasia series, is wonderful for doing that. I can't say enough good things about it, but and that's just, and it's a lovely thing to even do before you go to sleep, is read a little bit of that every night. Whatever, pick whatever book you want that's going to take you there, and then start growing a couple plants, 1 or 2 plants at the beginning. Get to know them, get to know how they communicate. Start surrounding yourself with what is really life, and not this synthetic, artificial, CPU, data frame that we're living, this hard wiring reality.
And it's best to do it a little bit at a time, because if you do it too much, then you overwhelm yourself and you're setting yourself up
Yes.
to divert a little bit of your money over to, you don't have to completely alter your diet, but start buying a little bit healthier stuff and augmenting it and adding it to, and experimenting with that. Get out and talk to people face to face,
Yeah.
And also I wanted to say too, to be very careful about some of, we have tried to get these communities going for generations, and this virus is very good at infiltrating groups. So once you get a group going, make sure that you keep your communication lines way open, and that you don't get your feelers hurt if somebody calls you on your crap.
Mm-hmm.
Be open with yourselves and say, hey, something doesn't feel right here, because that's what we have been seeing, is when groups of people start getting enough energy together, then they start being targeted. And you'll see some of these glitzy things online, these beautiful communities and stuff. But if you look into it further, what you're doing is you're actually giving yourself away. There's that false savior thing again.
Exactly. Good point.
And really look at that. Yeah. If you live in a trailer park, start talking to your neighbors, get yourself a community garden going. And it's not as hard as it sounds, really, but some of us have been so isolated from our fellow human beings that it's very awkward. And you've got to take the risk to trust someone, but don't just open it up so wide that you're becoming a target either. So
No.
I don't know where else to take that, but I have seen some very good communities and groups go south way fast because it gets in there, and this whole cryptocurrency kind of thing that's going on. It's another fashion of what we had before. It's the same package in a new wrapper.
Exactly.
And
that keeps happening.
You know, just get back into yourself, find your integrity. Yeah. Start questioning yourself. What are your morals? What is your integrity? What does motivate you? And not how it looks to everyone else, but what feels good within you, and then let it grow from there.
Well, and question, I mean, it's good to question everything. It's good to question, you know, what constitutes your life. And if you're unhappy, I mean, there's so many people who are unhappy, and they're going to work every day, and you know, it's just a paycheck to pay bills, and they're not really having any life. They're not, you know, you know, you tell me, what is, I don't know, it's endless. But yeah, start maybe connecting with a group. There's meetups and all manner of things. So if you don't even know what you're doing, just start small, like Marilee said. You don't have to take on anything that you can't. Just start introducing this more and more into your field, into your world, so that ultimately what this is about is returning to heart and not being taken over by the mind, where all of these external forces are operating. Because it's very difficult for them to access the mind, or to access the heart. It's difficult for them, you know, I mean, they've been manipulating people through fear or lust. I'm not going to say love, because they want to make people feel like they're in love, but really it's just lust, and it's addiction. So they've been manipulating people via and utilizing different formats of addiction, whether it's through drugs or emotion, or relationship cycles of codependency. You know, there's just so much to discuss with regards to the pathology of the, you know, the parasitic takeover, and how it all works with how civilization has been created. But instead of, you know, getting overwhelmed by everything, just start small. That's
and that's what I was saying. As soon as you start feeling overwhelmed, take a deep breath and bring that back to your heart center, and then just sit in that space for a little while, and you will have a whole different perspective, and you're not as reactionary. There are moments that you have to react fast, but you don't have to do that 24/7, like what we've been conditioned to do. They want to keep you up there so you're making decisions where you don't have a chance to think and stay connected with yourself. So, you know, bring that back and make time, like Lauda said, the sleeping, the recharging, take time for yourself. Put that up on the priority of your list too. So it's not selfish. It's so full.
Well, exactly. And it's okay to, you know, make mistakes, because that's part of the learning. And how, and the more and more everyone is getting accustomed to the artificial synthetic control center, aka the control center of your mind, the harder it is for people to find connection nowadays. And so the level of isolation is so extreme. And, you know, many who are awakening are discovering that it is a very lonely realization, knowing that oftentimes you can't connect to those that are around you, and you can't connect to the things that you used to be able to connect to. But there are a lot of people who are in the same position in this awakening that are looking for these communities to start building.
Yes.
And so really, I mean, you know, there's no limit to what we can do, especially now, because it's vital, it's needed. Yeah, and there's not enough I can say about that, which it's a work in progress, right? So, okay.
Yeah. And just if one doesn't work for you, go to another one. Find another one. There's going to be, a match somewhere. But, don't expect it to be 100% match, because that is a human natural trait with human either. We're always finding fault in something. But you can work with it, and if it's not being imposed on you, then, and if everybody is still talking and communicating and creating, that is the key, is people have got to put their creative juices into this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to be handed to any of them.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nothing is. And that's the thing about the convergence of the event horizon. It's, there's no more hitchhiking and piggybacking. It's, the work has to be done by the person, and the realizations and the consciousness has to be literally, you have to own it because it's yours and no one else's. Discussing the difference between Tiamat, Terra, Tara, and Earth. So the original Tiamat, we'll start there because that is where the huge catastrophe occurred, where pieces literally were the remnants and became the realms, this being one of them, which we call Earth, and which we originally also called Tara and Terra, but Terra before Tara. So we'll just talk a little bit about that, Mary Lee.
Okay. Well, we did mention that a little bit earlier about the Tiamat too, though. That whole dismemberment of Tiamat is what actually created all of this. So, and it is being remembered. So, and then when we get into the Terra and Tara, oh, geez. I don't even know.
I had made, even start. Well, I had made a post. We had made a post because of one of the videos that George and I have done, and we were referencing terror is Terra. So much of what happened when Terra was Terra and not Tara, Terra was the conclusion of many traumas that were injected or that were created, and it was a state of defragmentation. It was a state of division. It was a state of the dismemberment continued within the mind of the womanity that was here. So the Terra definition, which was another name for Earth, actually within it holds what it actually was a result of, which was terror. Tara, which is the name of Earth itself, it's an ancient name that does mean Earth. You want to talk a little bit about Tara and the Celtic origins and the remembering of that?
Well, in that narrative part of it, Tara is actually the force of our connection, and we, right at the beginning of what we were talking about human and humus. That the human is the connection of the soil to the human, and just as Tara is the connection of human to the soil. Did that make any sense at all?
Absolutely.
They're kind of the way that it's the bonding, and and this did get carried through it in the Celtic lines too. But remember that the Celts were the invaders of that part of it, so it's a timeline thing. But I remember my great grandmother telling me of Tara pre-Celt, and they would have ceremonies of marrying the land, where the person that was entitled stewardship of the land. Now this is before the kings and all of that stuff. This is the tribal system. So it's not the serfs and the peasants that I'm talking about in that caste system, but the people that would set up to begin farming land or hunting and gathering or whatever. It was that bond there, and every year you married the land. So it was a emergence with the land. So Tara is the land part of it, and the humus is the human part of that.
Yeah, and the humus.
So we are of.
Right, and the humus is where humor comes from, and humor is all the fluids. So it's actually, the universe is comprised of 99% plasma. So and we are the SEA. The humor are the fluids, which is what also Terra is. That is what also comprises the earth. She was also a goddess. They made her into a goddess, so the name Terra, became a goddess as well. And the Terra,
that was when trying to personify. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It was trying to personify what the earth was as a creation and creator. Terra actually is also a part of the term for biology, which is a telomeric repeat containing RNA. RNA now is hugely important because it is within the RNA that a lot of this corruption has taken place. And that's where the memory, the telomeres, the memory strains attach themselves together. So when you corrupt that, you dismember the member, you remove the memory. So it's interesting that in biology, the term Terra is referenced to the telomere repeat containing the RNA.
One interesting thing is when you compare the human body, this the bioform, and the Tara bioform. The water, the minerals, the bacterias, all of that stuff. We are the same. We are interrelated so intricately, and then the frequencies of all of those communicate when you allow them to communicate. And this is what we have to reach out for, that had to, out of self-preservation, separate itself from this simulation.
Exactly.
So we're kind of like the micros of the macro that had to step away until this, dissolves or do whatever this simulation is going to do.
Now think about this as well.
Yeah, go for
it. Now, like I said, this is a verse. It's a realm that the universe is a verse. So Terra, as we were talking about Tara, and I was talking about Terra. Terra, which also, is terabyte. Terra, it's a type of network connector. You start looking at it, and it's incredible what comes up. The references describe in the name itself, in the definition, is disambiguation. So we were saying how Terra was the embodiment of the terror rot and the division and the dismemberment, which is interesting because one of the definitions of Terra is disambiguation. Like, that's just gobsmacking to me when I, think of, it's right in front of our eyes. All of it. It's all in front of our eyes. We just have been so washed in our brains that we can't see what's in front of us, and that's their magic. That's how they put everything in front of us, but protect the knowledge while having us manifest it, because we're constantly manifesting it when we see it before us.
And that's because that frequency, that virus, that parasite can't do it. So it needs us to do it for them.
Exactly. And that's it, because the parasite quote, parasites, the forces on multiple dimensions and densities, they don't have a physicality, they don't have a body. They can sense and they can feel everything through us, through osmosis. And this is where you often have people experience ghosts walking through them. But that's, that's a very minor example of what takes place all the time with this psychic virus and with these parasites, because we can literally be hosting them, and they have a body because of us, because of this osmosis, this, this connection, this fusion, and they're in their whatever form, etheric form, their formless form, and we form the actual body. So yeah, it's quite elaborate, I have to say.
Yeah.
So any last thoughts before we finish up for the night, Marilee?
Wow. I think my thought to tell you the truth.
You just broke up again. You just broke up.
Trying to think, did we hit everything? Oh boy. Are you hearing me now?
Yep. Do you want to?
Okay. One thing that we did in here was the birthing program, but maybe we can handle that at another time, because that's going to open up a whole other can of worms.
Okay, yeah, I like that. That sounds good. All right, so
okay, the hard wiring and the birthing.
Yes. Any last thoughts before we end the show for tonight, Marilee?
I think the last thoughts I would like to leave out there is that this is our alchemy, and it is up to us to incorporate the elements that we have around us to create the world that we want, instead of having it created for us. So I think that's about the only thing I can think of right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope we can hand to people, is at least thinking in a different angle.
Well, and that's a great way to end this, because we are the ultimate alchemy, and we are the ultimate technology, if you will. And this is where everything is based on us. So whenever you see technology, wherever you see a parasite, wherever you see anything that is a counterfeit, that is a host, an attempted parasite trying to host, wherever you see AI, wherever you see anything that is trying to mimic us, we are the ultimate weapon. We are the ultimate technology. We are the ultimate alchemy, and everything starts with us, and everything ends with us, and the end is the beginning. So you know, this is where it's at. It's us. We are the Graal. We are the, you know, the elixir of alchemy and you know, in existence, encompassing all levels, all dimensions, all densities, all time, all timelessness, all wrapped in one.
I don't know what else to add to that.
Well, thank you, Mary Lee. It's been a pleasure. We want to thank everybody for listening.
Thank you. Have a good night.